So here's my electric brewery setup. I've got the red control box, which has my march pump in there, as well as all the electronic control elements of the system. The brew kettle here has a hard plumbed wort chiller in there, as well as the 4,500 watt heating element. And this is, for lack of a term, we'll say this is my mash vessel right here. And it's basically a 4-gallon food grade bucket that is on steel legs, and this sits above the heating element. Those legs hold it above the heating element, and similar to the Brewmeister, I have a inverse from bottom to top wort recirculation technique that I use. I've loaded about 6.5 pounds of grain into this bucket. This grain bucket maxes out at about 7.5 to 8 gallons, or 7.5 to 8 pounds of grain. Above that, the grain gets packed too tight. So I got 6.5 gallons, or again 6.5 pounds of grain in here. I'm going to put the lid on, snap that in place, and we'll see how that recirculates in just a minute. Okay, so I just finished adding my 7 gallons of water to my brew kettle. I took my outflow from my marsh pump, I stuck it through the hole in the top of my kettle, and through a hole that's matched up in the top of the mashing vessel, and I just turned the water on. Right now I don't have any heat being applied. I'm just kind of making sure that everything's working before I really get cooking here with the fire. And as you can see, the water is, or now what we call the pre-wort, if you want to call it, is rising through all the holes in the top of the brew bucket. There are a few holes on the side of the brew bucket as well, near the top, so you don't have to get to the very top. The marsh pump is pretty powerful, so I actually necked down the throttle valve, which is the valve on the right there. Otherwise, I could potentially overpressure this vessel and pop the top, and I'm going to have grain spilling out the top. I'll come over to my temperature controller box. I turn on the unit, and I've actually already got it set to 42.6 Celsius, which is approximately, well, I even put a little handy cheat chart right here, approximately 108 to 110 degrees, and I'm going to do a step mash at 110 degrees for about 10 or 15 minutes before I bump up to the 150 range. I just recently kicked it up. I'm doing the sparge, so I bumped mine up to about 75 Celsius, which is close to 167 degrees Fahrenheit. Gonna let it run just for a little bit, and then I'll show you how I do my sparge. And now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this little handle and hook it to the place where it's supposed to go on the bucket. That little spigot that you might have seen on the side of the bucket earlier has a steel braided hose on the inside. I'm going to open that, reach down, kind of lift the bucket up a little bit, and reach down, pull the spigot to the open position, and the wort can drain out of the bucket from the bottom at that point. Let the bucket sit above the brew kettle for a while and drain. And you can see maybe you can see the wort draining out of there. I'm going to definitely hear it. But it's coming out. So in order to get my boil going, I have my PID controller, and my PID has a duty cycle function, so I can do pulse width modulation and turn my element on manually. But it takes a while for that to reset every single time I want to do this, so I wired up my own PWM circuit right here. And I always like having a manual, something I can drive directly with myself. So this is my pulse width circuit. I've got a little knob. I can turn it all the way up, or I can turn it, all the way down to basically nothing. So I just flip the switch over to the manual mode, and then I kick it on to 100%. Okay, so I just hit a boil. I got my hop break. I skimmed some of it off with a skimmer, and just put my hops in a mesh bag there. And you can see I've got a decent boil going. with the pulse width circuit clicking on and off happily. If I turn it all the way up to 100%, my boil will increase rather quickly, and to the point where you would start worrying. And just as fast, I can turn it off to basically, well, to nothing. Over here, I have my grains draining over another bucket. I actually use a couple pieces of wood to keep it propped up, and I'm pretty much done with that. So I got a good little bit of extra water in the bottom here, and I'm going to pour this in and keep things going. Kind of have non-standard cooling setup right now. Normally I have a hose connection going and water pumping through real quick. I don't have that hose right now. I don't know where it went, so I'm actually just using a small little submersible pump that I happen to have by luck to push water through the wort chiller and cool everything off. So that's where I stand for now. A good feature of having a marsh pump and this kind of setup is that if I just raise that pipe up so that the end of it is sticking out of the wort and I turn the pump on, it aerates my wort for me at that point, so I'm not shaking any carboys or doing any fuss like that with air stones and such.